4,000 Enron employees were thrown out of work, many of them onto the street behind me.
Martha Stewart living in prison? On this day in 2004, Martha Stewart was incarcerated in Alderson, West Virginia. She served 5 months in a federal penitentiary for her involvement in the ImClone stock trading case. Do you think her punishment was too lenient? Let us know below.
Number 10, Sam Bankman-Fried and the FTX fraud.
One of the most powerful people in the cryptocurrency industry, Sam Bankman-Fried, arrested overnight in the Bahamas. The federal charges just unsealed.
Once held the poster boy for crypto, Sam Bankman-Fried rose to prominence as the founder and CEO of FTX, a popular cryptocurrency exchange. But his glowing reputation in the media was sullied when he was arrested in the Bahamas in December 2022. The allegations against Bankman-Fried were serious. He was accused of embezzling billions from FTX customers and investors, channeling these funds into Alameda Research, a crypto trading hedge fund he co-founded.
A lot of people look at you and see Bernie Madoff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's who I am at all, but I understand why they're saying that.
Through Alameda, Bankman-Fried used the money to make real estate investments and political donations. In the wake of these accusations, FTX declared bankruptcy. Bankman-Fried was extradited to the U.S., where he was tried and convicted on multiple charges, including wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering.
Two things that I find interesting about the timing of the arrest. Number one, he was supposed to testify in front of Congress today. Why not just let him testify, get more statements on the record, and then arrest him?
Number 9, Tao International accounting scandal.
They were extremely intense. It was in the days before you could instantly communicate with somebody. There was a lot of unknown at that time, too, especially in a company the size of Tyco. We were doing business in 60 different countries.
Since its establishment in 1960, security systems from Tao International achieved considerable success, acquiring several smaller companies and generating billions in revenue. In the early 2000s, however, Tyco faced a scandal involving allegations of widespread financial misconduct by top executives.
I think it had me believe some of my own press, back then, when you come out as being the number one company in the S&P by an analysis that some independent party does, you start believing you're pretty good.
CEO Dennis Kozlowski and CFO Mark Schwartz were accused of defrauding the company of over $150 million, which they used to fund their extravagant lifestyle. This included a lavish $2 million birthday party for Kozlowski's wife on a Mediterranean island. The legal repercussions unfolded over 2 trials. The first ended in a mistrial, while the second led to the conviction of Kozlowski and Schwartz. They were both sentenced to a minimum of 8 years and 4 months in prison.
What I needed to do was to stay busy, in some way. And by having the laundry job, I was able to sit in the laundry room and have a chair, which is a rare commodity in prison.
Number 8, Ivan Bosi and the insider trading scandal.
In other news today, the biggest name in Wall Street's insider trading scandal, Ivan Bosi, has finally appeared in court. He made hundreds of millions of dollars by buying and selling in companies just as they were about to be taken over.
In the 1980s, Ivan Bosi, a prominent Wall Street arbitrager nicknamed Ivan the Terrible, became embroiled in one of the largest insider trading scandals at the time. Bosi operated his own stock brokerage company and amassed immense wealth by speculating on company takeovers and mergers. His downfall began in 1986 when an SEC investigation revealed that Bosi had made investments based on confidential tips from corporate insiders.
It would have taken fully 2 years to get to the stage that we would have been able to convict Mr. Bosi.
To mitigate the consequences, Bosi decided to cooperate with the SEC, providing information about others in the industry, such as Michael Milken. More on him in a bit. As a result, Bosi was fined $100 million and served only 2 years in prison, after which he was banned from working in the securities industry.
A year ago, hardly anybody outside the financial industry had even heard of Ivan Bosi. Now his name has become symbolic of what federal prosecutors call a systemic disease on Wall Street.
Number 7, Michael Milken insider trading and stock manipulation.
Street. He was ultimately, he pled guilty to securities violations, paid hundreds of millions of dollars in fines, and ultimately was banished from the securities industry altogether, faced a lifetime ban there.
One of the individuals implicated by Ivan Bosi was American financier Michael Milin, a key figure at the investment bank Drexel Burnham Lambert. Milin was known for pioneering high-yield bonds, or junk bonds, and came into contact with Bosi through his work. Bosi, who was one of his clients, later implicated Milin and Drexel Burnham Lambert in his illegal activities.
These particular crimes did create a tremendous amount of collateral damage. I don't think Milin intended that, but that's true of many white-collar crimes.
An investigation revealed an intricate network of crimes, including manipulation of stocks and bonds, as well as insider information trading. Milin was subsequently indicted on numerous criminal charges and faced a lengthy prison sentence if convicted. He later pleaded guilty to 6 counts of securities and tax violations, ultimately serving about 2 years in prison.
The whole point of having Milin go to jail, or any white-collar criminal for that matter, it's not that they're going to go out in society and, commit a violent crime or something, need to be in jail. It's the deterrent factor.
Number 6, Charles Ponzi's original scheme.
Charles Ponzi was a very established thief. He stole petty things, church poor boxes, documents, anything he could get his hands on.
The classic Ponzi scheme takes its name from Charles Ponzi, an Italian immigrant who operated in the U.S. and Canada. In the early 20th century, Ponzi devised an elaborate investment scheme that ultimately swindled investors out of about $20 million, equivalent to over $200 million today. Ponzi established the Security Exchange Company in January 1920, which attracted a large influx of funds by guaranteeing investors a 50% profit within 45 days or 100% within 90 days.
It took them years, and when they were finished, they had to admit that although they had determined that some significant sum of tens of millions of dollars must have passed through the scheme, they couldn't ever establish how much it was.
However, this scheme was unsustainable, as it relied solely on recruiting new investors to pay off earlier ones. Unsurprisingly, it collapsed in just a few months. Ponzi pleaded guilty to mail fraud and served time in prison, after which he was deported to Italy.
They were convinced that the whole thing was some kind of terrible mistake, and he would get out of prison and he would give them back their money. To this day, I'm sure someplace in Boston Holmes, in an attic, there are old Ponzi certificates still waiting to be cashed in.
Number 5, ImClone stock trading case.
What was a small personal matter became, over the last 2 years, an almost fatal circus event of unprecedented proportions.
In 2001, pharmaceutical company ImClone Systems failed to get FDA approval for their experimental new drug, Erbitux. Prior to the public announcement of this decision, company insiders, including CEO Sam Waxel, tipped off their friends and families to sell their shares. The ensuing scandal gained widespread attention, mostly due to the involvement of lifestyle guru Martha Stewart, who had also sold off her shares shortly before the stock plummeted.
It's not just a reality check, it's a harsh reality check. It's nobody wants to go through prison in their lives, and it's not going to be a pleasant experience for her.
Waxel was arrested in 2002 and sentenced to over 7 years in prison after pleading guilty to multiple charges, including securities fraud. Stewart, on the other hand, pleaded not guilty to her criminal charges. Following a highly publicized trial, however, she was convicted and received a 5-month prison sentence.
Our industry is meant to innovate, to do new things, to change the world. And to do that, by the way, pricing has gone up far too much, but we're supposed to do it in an intelligent way.
Number 4, Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos.
This company was seen really as the darling of Silicon Valley, so was she. There was medical marvel behind it, people sort of, trying to race each other to invest in it.
It was a blood testing technology that was initially hailed as revolutionary, but later turned out to be a massive fraud. Elizabeth Holmes founded Theranos in 2003, promising fast, affordable, and accurate tests using small amounts of blood. If that sounds ludicrous to you, then you're probably not one of several investors who raised over $700 million for Theranos.
There were a couple of things in there that didn't sit well with me. One of them was this notion that a college dropout who had 2 semesters of chemical engineering under her belt had just dropped out and pioneered groundbreaking new science.
At its peak, the company's estimated value reached $10 billion. But such great heights only meant that they had further to fall. Things began to unravel in 2015 when it was revealed that Theranos' technology didn't work as promised, and Holmes had misled investors and patients. She was found guilty of wire fraud and conspiracy and sentenced to over 11 years in prison.
And we'd like to see a world in which every person gets access to this type of basic testing.
Number 3, Worldcom accounting scandal.
Bernie Ebbers presided over the biggest accounting fraud, or one of the biggest in U.S. history, the collapse of Worldcom. Was sentenced essentially to a lifetime in prison back in 2005.
At the time of its discovery in 2002, this case was the largest accounting fraud in U.S. history. It involved Worldcom, then the second largest long-distance telephone company in America.
It was one that Ebbers partook in part, played the role of. Do I really think that he understood the intricacies of the accounting that went on at Worldcom? No.
Under the leadership of CEO Bernard Ebbers, Worldcom executives inflated company profits over a 3-year period to meet investor expectations and maintain their stock price. This was accomplished by manipulating accounting entries, essentially cooking the books, to present a false image of profitability. In total, this fraud amounted to $11 billion and was uncovered by a team of internal auditors. As a result, the company filed for bankruptcy, and Ebbers was convicted of fraud and conspiracy charges, receiving a 25-year prison sentence.
I know that was shocking was the Justice Department went after him with everything it had.
Yeah, and that punishment of 25 years did seem, when you look at it now, with perspective, yes. It was so far beyond anything else that was received during that period of time.
Number 2, Enron Financial Collapse.
Enron filed for bankruptcy December 2nd, 2001. At the peak of its success, the company's shares were worth more than $90 each.
1 year before the Worldcom accounting scandal, another prominent corporation crumbled due to financial fraud. That corporation was Enron. Founded in 1985, the energy company enjoyed success throughout the 1990s. However, as competition in the industry became tougher, profits began to fall. The company's leadership, including Chairman Kenneth Lay and CEO Jeffrey Skilling, implemented various financial schemes to mask their losses and deceive investors and regulators.
4,000 Enron employees were thrown out of work, many of them onto the street behind me. Ultimately, more than 20,000 had their careers uprooted. Many lost all their retirement savings. The people at the top lost their dignity.
As the truth emerged, Enron's stock plummeted, resulting in the largest American bankruptcy filing at the time. Multiple Enron executives, including Lay and Skilling, faced criminal charges and were sentenced to prison. The scandal prompted the enactment of regulatory reforms such as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, aiming to ensure corporate accountability and transparency.
Certainly there's still accounting fraud going on. What's very rare to see, especially in established large companies like Enron, is a fraud that's driven from the top of the company.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable, or in this case, dishonorable mentions. Alan Stanford's Ponzi scheme. Stanford earned a 110-year prison sentence for selling fraudulent certificates worth $7 billion.
I've worked my life. I've given everything I've had. I love my employees.
Jordan Belfort and Stratton Oakmont. Pump and dump schemes, security fraud, market manipulation, you name it.
And those would say, well, why is this guy living as well as he is, and he still owes these people?
Well, how should I be living? Should I be living in a gutter?
Adelphia Financial Collapse. The Regas family, which owned Adelphia, misused company funds, resulting in bankruptcy.
I don't know what other people think. I think in this town we think he's been such a gracious, wonderful man.
Jack Abramoff Indian lobbying scandal. Efforts to defraud Native American tribes of $85 million led to a huge political scandal.
I was so far in it that I couldn't figure out where right and wrong was. I believed that I was among the top moral people in the business. I was totally blinded by what was going on.
Number 1, Bernie Madoff investment scandal.
They invested their money with Madoff, in some cases all of their money, tens of millions of dollars, which apparently he was taking, purporting to be getting 10, 15% returns on their money, when in fact he had lost all of it.
If Charles Ponzi popularized the Ponzi scheme, Bernie Madoff perfected it. Madoff was a former chairman of NASDAQ who founded his own Wall Street firm. Through the wealth management arm of his firm, Madoff lured investors with the promise of consistently high returns of 10% regardless of market conditions. In reality, it was an elaborate Ponzi scheme, one that defrauded investors of approximately $65 billion, making it the largest ever of its kind.
It is of epic proportions. The folks that have contacted us are so profoundly invested in these funds that it'll alter their lives pretty much forever.
Although doubts about his legitimacy had surfaced as early as 1999, it wasn't until 2008 that Madoff was arrested after his sons turned him in. He pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies and received the maximum sentence of 150 years in prison, where he died in 2021.
Continuing in a pyramid fashion to get more investors' money and pretending to pay off the old people with new people's money. And now $50 billion in assets are wiped out, gone.
Did we miss any other notorious financial crimes? Let us know in the comments below.
Make a lot of money. Yeah, I do all right for myself.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.